Hello there, I'm Barrett Wilson for Guitar Tricks, and in this video, I'm going to be talking all about triads. Now, triads are a deceivingly simple organizational tool that can help unlock the fretboard for you. Now, for me personally, studying and understanding how to use triads really opened up my playing almost more than anything. They also helped me to truly understand how to use and incorporate the cage system to my learning and my practicing as well. Now, I want to note here that it does help to be able to know the notes all over the fretboard for this kind of study. Make sure and head to guitartricks.com/skyrocketriads, where you can enter your email for a free beginner guitar guide, which includes the 10 worst mistakes beginners make, a dead simple practice plan, our famous beginner chord chart with the 14 essential first chords everyone should know, plus a lot more. Okay, so let's get into triads. Now, the most important thing to realize is a triad is built of 3 notes only, and they're stacked in thirds. So it's a little music theory there for you. So, for example, if we've got the C major scale, we stack every other note. So a C chord gets C, E, G. The next chord gets D, F, A. The next chord gets E, G, B, and so on. Now, it's really helpful when you're studying triads to memorize these triad formations. So you can even start with A and go through the natural notes. A, C, and E. Next, we've got B, D, F. Then we've got C, E, G. We've got D, F, A. We've got E, G, B. We've got F, A, C. And then we've also got G, B, D. So there's only 7 of them, and you have to put in a little bit of nitty-gritty work there to memorize them. But once you got them, and it's really gonna help you put these triads together and start to see them all over the fretboard. Now, once you've got those, you want to start incorporating them into your open chords. Now, when we play other chords and when we work with other keys, we're always going to have sharps and flats involved. And that's also a little bit of theory that you might want to get into. But it'll start to make sense the more you start doing it. So let's take a look at how this would work with an open chord. Let's take an A major chord. So we have our classic A major chord here. Now, an A major triad is just 3 notes. So we've got A, C sharp is our major third, and then E is our 5th. And those are the chord functions: root, major third, and 5th. A, C sharp, E. Now this is helpful for when we build out the full shape. So if we know our full chord, some of these notes are gonna double. So we're playing on 5 strings, but we don't have 5 different notes. We've got 3 notes, some of them double up. So if we look at that, we've got an A, start things off on the 5th string there. We've got an E, which is the 5th of the chord. Then we've got another A, which is the root of the chord. We've got C sharp, which is the 3rd, the major third, I should say. And then we've got E, which is the 5th. So we got root, 5th, root, 3rd, and 5th. So the root is doubled and the 5th is doubled, and we just have 1 3rd in this chord. Okay, so understanding triads will help us to see this in our big open chord shapes that we know, and then also as we take these shapes up the neck, it helps us to see them more clearly as well. Now, another thing, when you start studying this with your other open chord shapes, you'll see that they all line up differently. So if you take a C chord, for example, the notes of a C triad are C, E, and G. Let's see how this works out. So we've got a C here, we've got an E, which is our major third, we've got a 5th, which is a G, so C, E, G, root, major third, 5th, and then we play another root C, so that's doubled up, and then we have another major third, E. So we've got root, major third, 5th, root, major third. So that's different than how it lined up with the A chord. Now this is all gonna make a pretty big difference when we start to internalize these shapes and move them up the neck. So you'll see G has its own different orientation, E has a different orientation, and also D as well. Okay, now knowing how the chord function works and the notes work helps us to alter the chord without having to use a diagram book. So once you have these functions worked out, you can start to alter them. So let's see how this would work. Let's take a look at a D chord. Now, we end up using sus4 or sus2 a lot with this chord. You've heard it a bunch, and it comes from altering the major third. So with D, D major, the notes of the triad are D, F sharp, and A. Now, if we look how it lines up with our D chord, we have a root, which is D, open string there. Then we have the fifth, which is an A note. We have another root. Now this so far is just a power chord. But then we add in that major third, the F sharp, on the E string here. So we have root, fifth, root, major third. Now the way we get sus4 and sus2 is we forego that third. We make it, if we want to make it a sus4, we make it a 4. So we raise it 1 fret there. So there's no third. Now there's root, fifth, root, and a 4th. So we're suspending the third. Okay, we go back to our third. Now if we want to make it a sus2, we suspend that third and we go to the second. So we lift up and we get an E note, which is the second note of a D scale. Okay, that's a major second. So a quicker way to know that is, okay, I know the functions. I know this is the major third. If I want to alter that and make it a 4, I can. If I want to make it a sus2, I can. And you can start to do that with the other shapes. You can do it with A. We know this is the third. You can make that a sus4, a sus2. All right, with C, you can do it. Now this gets a little trickier because we have 2 thirds. So we might want to let one of them go. We might let go of the high E and just play the middle 4 strings. And if we do sus4, we take that third, raise it up. Sus4, regular, sus2. Okay, you can play with this with the other shapes with E. You can play with it on G as well. And then you can start to do it with minor chords, and it opens up a whole bunch. Okay, real quick, if you're finding this interesting and helpful, please give it a thumbs up and a like and a subscribe. Now, also in the description of this video, you'll find a link that's going to take you to a free trial of guitar tricks. Go ahead and check that out. Okay, so let's go into step 2 of learning and incorporating triads into our understanding of the fretboard. Now, a great thing to do is learn how to play major and minor triads in root position, which means we start with the root of the chord and we play it on different string sets only, kind of like a chord. Now, you can always play triads broken and so forth, but now we're trying to just play them on 3 strings only as a chord. So let's take an A major here. So this is from our bigger shape, just playing on G, B, and high E. We've got our root, which is A. We've got our major third, which is our C sharp, and then we have E. Okay? Now, if we want to make this minor, we take that third interval and we flat it. That's the difference between a major and a minor chord. Triad, that is. We take that major third and we flat it. So now it's minor. So now we have A, C, and E. Okay? So that's a good thing to do. So we have A major, A minor. Now let's try this in a different spot of the neck. Let's take a different chord. Let's take a C chord. Same shape as our A. We come up here, we have a C root on the G string. We have an E and a G. And that's our C major triad. C, E, G, root, major third, and fifth. Now if we make it minor, you got it. We take that major third interval, the E, and we flat it. So now it's an E flat. We have C, E flat, G, root, flat 3, and fifth. Okay? So that's how we play that shape, major, minor, on the G, B, and high E strings. Now you can also do this as well on the D, G, and B strings, and this is a good place to start. Let's take that C chord again. Now, if we know our notes, we find a C here on the 10th fret of the D string, and we get a C, E here on the G string, and then a G on the B string. Okay, this looks like a small F shape, but it's up here. So again, same thing, we have our major third. If we want to make it minor, we have to flat that. So we take that E note here, flat it, we get E flat, C, E flat, and G. So there's major, minor. Now I'm going to take it a step further here. It's also good to know how to play a diminished triad, which is basically a minor triad, but then we flat the 5th. So we're going to take that G down 1 fret. Now we have to change our fingering a little bit. So I'm going pinky, middle, and index. Okay, like that. So major, minor, diminished. And you're going to use these shapes all over the place. You can do the same thing on the G, B, and high E strings. Major, minor, flat that 5 to make it diminished. Okay, once you have those string sets, try it on all the other ones. So try it with the C here. So we have major. This is just the bottom of our C chord. Minor. Now we can't play diminished here because we can't go lower than this open D. So we might want to try that here on the lowest string set, the low E, A, and D. So there's a C note here. We can play a C triad there. In 5th position, C, E, G, minor, diminished, take that 5th interval, flat it. Okay, and finally, step 3 for incorporating these triads is to learn how to play them as inversions. Now, I had mentioned that we were just learning how to play these in root position. Now, when you take an inversion, you basically take one of the other notes other than the root of that triad and you put it in the bass. So let's go back to our A triad here. So remember we had A, which is the root, C sharp, and then E. So this is root position because that A note is the lowest note that we're playing right now in this moment. Now, first inversion means that we're going to take that A and we're going to move it up and we're going to play C sharp in the bass now because that's the next note, A, C sharp. So we're going to take the third, put that in the bass or the lowest note of the chord. So that means we go here to C sharp, fill out the rest of the notes. We have an E here, and then we have an A on top. So we move that A on top, and now we have C sharp, which is the third of the chord as the lowest note. And then you can do this again for one more inversion, a second inversion, where we're gonna take the C sharp, we're moving up, and we're gonna play an E in the bass, which is the 5th. And then we have the root, and then the third. So you'll find there's 3 spots now that you can play before you get to the 12th fret. We have root position with the root in the bass. We've got first inversion with the third in the bass. And then we've got second inversion with the 5th in the bass. All right, and this is huge for opening up your rhythm playing. You're gonna find these shapes are super helpful. You know, a lot of rockabilly, rock in general, indie music is going to use these smaller shapes. So then you can try this on all the other string sets. So try it out with, I like to start with the lowest chord that you can play in root position and not as an open chord. So we have an F here that we could play. It's a small F shape, and the notes are F, A, C, root, major third, 5th. Now, we could also play this up the string to find out what our bass notes are going to be. So on the D string, we have F, next note is A, here on the 7th fret, and then the 5th of that chord is C, here on the 10th fret. Okay, so that's going to be the bass notes that we're going to. So we have F in root position down here. Okay, and then we go up, find our third, which is here, that A note, fill out the rest of the chord. We have A, C, and then F on top. that's how this one lines up. And then the next one, we're gonna have C in the bass, then F, which is the root, and then A. Okay, and that's our second inversion. So you can find these shapes, and there's only 3 of them per string set from frets 0 to 12. Okay, you can do this for C on the next string set, so A, D, and G. So that's how it looks there. Root, major third and 5th. So C, E, G. Then we're gonna go E, which is the 3rd, G, and C. And then we're gonna go to G, which is the 5th, C, root, and then E. And this is where you get into some really great territory here. And that's gonna look the same orientation-wise as if you do it on the low E, A, and D string. So we could do G now. Let's try G. We have G, B, and D, root, 3rd, 5th. So now we're gonna go up and we're gonna play B as the 3rd with B, D, and G. So that's our first inversion. Second inversion, we go up to D, G, and then B. So root position, first inversion, second inversion. Okay, this is a great place to start from here, getting these shapes under your fingers, learning the functions, knowing how they work in bigger chords and shapes, and then starting to use them as parts. And you'll find that when you learn songs, you'll find these shapes all over the place. From here, you can start to incorporate them into the harmonized scale. So that's playing them within the key, up and down the neck. So if we got A, we know, okay, we have a major chord, we've got a B minor chord is our 2, C sharp is our 3 minor, D is major, 4, E is our major 5, and we've got F sharp as our 6 minor, G sharp diminished is our 7 diminished. And then you can just have fun playing around with it. Okay, thanks so much for watching today. Make sure and review the notes on the fretboard and also the sharps and flats from the main keys that you play in. Don't forget to check out the many great tutorials about triads at guitartricks.com. I'll see you in the next video.